It's time to accelerate. Hi, I'm your host, Andy Paul. Join me as I host conversations with the leading experts in sales, marketing, sales automation, sales process, leadership, management, training, coaching, any resource that I believe to help you accelerate the growth of your sales, your business, and most importantly, you. Hello, and welcome to Accelerate. I am amped up to talk with my guest today. Joining me for the second time is Richard Ruff, a top sales trainer, leading expert on major account selling, author of many books, including Mastering Major Accounts Selling, and co-author with Neil Rackam of one of the seminal books on the subject, Managing Major Sales. Today we're going to talk about sales training, Dick and I, because I believe, and I think Dick does as well, that the existing model for sales training is largely broken. And this belief is being driven not only by what I see with sales reps that can't even seem to learn the basics, but also by changes in technology and maybe an acknowledgement of the research into learning that has existed for decades, saying that classroom training is not the most effective educational format for most people. So my guest, Dick Ruff, over the course of his career has seen it all, and today we're going to talk about why sales training needs to change, how it's going to change, and what it's going to look like in the future. So Dick, welcome to the show, or welcome back to the show.
Well, thank you, Andy. It's a pleasure to have another opportunity to talk with your audience.
Well, great. So, maybe for somebody that didn't hear you the first time, is maybe give a brief introduction to yourself.
Sure. Yeah, I started in the sales training business with Neil Rackam at Huthwaite. And when Huthwaite was just a startup in this country, Neil did his original work in England with Huthwaite Research Group and came to the United States to open division in this country. So there were just two or three of us at the beginning. And I stayed there a fair amount of time, so I had a chance to kind of do one of each. I did a lot of the training and wrote some of the books with Neil, and towards the end, managed the sales team for Huthwaite. Then the big change occurred in 2000 when my partner and wife decided to start Sales Momentum. And the purpose of that, Andy, was really to look to see if we could design kind of a new generation of sales training that perhaps was a little bit better aligned with what we projected to be the needs of companies in the 21st century. So we've been keeping pretty busy trying to do that over the last 15 years. So that's kind of a short story of our background.
Okay. So Sales Momentum is your company with your wife. And so obviously she came from a sales background as well.
Well, yeah, she's another PhD type. I have a background in organizational psych, and Janet's work was with Xerox and with GE, and then she was also a university professor in business strategy and marketing.
Got it.
So it's one of those husband and wife kind of companies that a lot of people say you shouldn't do, and we decided to do it, and it's turned out okay.
And you're still married.
And we're still married.
Oh, excellent. Okay, good job. Good work.
Yeah.
So, all right, so you've been in sales training for a long time. I mean, sort of trace the arc of where you've seen the changes occur in sales training over your career, both from not just a technological standpoint, but in terms of a learning standpoint. I know theories have changed over time about how people best learn. What have you seen?
Well, yeah, that's a good place to start, Andy. I really think, we're sort of at an inflection point. I honestly think if you look back 10 or 15 years and look at what was going on and compared to what was going on today, you'd be struck mostly by the similarities.
So in spite of all the technological innovation we've had over that period of time and the growth of the internet, I mean, the internet was basically 5 years old in 2000, right? I mean, at least browsers have been around about 5 years at that point. Yeah, it seems sort of strange that the training would still be largely the same.
Yeah, I mean, granted, in the old days you used overhead projectors, and now we have PowerPoints and things like that. But I think the inflection point is occurring just about right now in the last several years. Because I think while there's a lot of similarity with the past, if you look at today, I think if you projected 10 years into the future, Andy, you'd be absolutely dazzled by the differences. I really believe that that the scope and scale of the changes that we're going to see in the next 10 years are really going to be characterized by words like innovative and exciting and perhaps even inspirational. So I think for everyone who is engaged in the sales training industry, we're in for one of these hold on to your hat kind of rides.
So why do you think that's the case? Given things have been relatively static, and given quite frankly, if you read the reports, and as I'm sure you have, and I've looked at some, is that there's a lot of skepticism about the value of sales training on the part of people that invest in it.
Yeah, I think you're right about the skepticism, Andy. I think you don't have to look too deep to see that. But I think there are two or three things that are going to drive that change that I'm talking about, which I, as I said, believe it will be transformational. One is just the business environment. I think today, companies are going through absolutely disruptive changes in what they do. McKinsey just published an interesting article about the change in business in the foreseeable future, and they were saying that the companies that are going to win are going to be the companies who see not only how to improve what they do, but how to reinvent what they do. The changes will be that dramatic in what it will take to succeed. Well, if companies change, they'll change how they buy, which means companies that are on the vendor side of the table are going to have to change how they sell. And that means sales training becomes more important.
So this inflection point that you're talking about is, and you're sort of saying it emanates originally from how people buy. So what are some of those changes you're seeing that are going to have an impact on how we sell? I mean, we've seen obviously a lot of online buying, more of the relationships going to virtual relationships as opposed to salespeople meeting the clients in person. I mean, what else are you seeing out there?
Well, I think on the business environment factor, I think the big change can be characterized that I think the customers are going to expect their suppliers and the sales reps that represent those suppliers to be trusted advisors, not product facilitators. They're going to be looking for people who are sales reps that can provide them real insight into their business. They want fresh ideas. They don't want somebody to come in and talk about a product. They can turn on their computer and learn everything they need to know about that. They can do that today. Imagine what they'll be able to do 10 years from now. So to me, the big, if you had to attach one thing to it, I think it's the shift from companies' expectations from a rep being a product facilitator to becoming a trusted advisor, and that means a whole new skill set.
Yes,
I think there are several other factors that are going to drive the change. I mean, the one you mentioned, Andy, jumps right off the table, and that's technology. There is no question that the technology, both on the customer side of the table to get information and on the seller side of the table, will be dramatic. And the technology to deliver sales training is going to be entirely different.
Well, let's dig into let's go back to the trusted advisor thing for a second, because not that I necessarily doubt it. I mean, the book. Let's take the book, The Trusted Advisor. Yeah. Which our friend Charles Green was participated in the creation of. It's been around forever. Yeah. I'm sure you certainly knew, as did I, back when I was first starting my sales career and through the bulk of it before I started my own company, that positioning myself as the trusted advisor was the way to win. So it's not like this is new, but what you're saying, I think what I hear you saying is that, we always know really successful salespeople have done this and positioned themselves this way, but now the customers are going to say, look, everybody, if you want to have a shot at me, everybody sort of needs to get on board this train about being a trusted advisor. Yeah,
the notion isn't new, but I think the fact that it'll be more pervasive and the level to which you'll be able to provide that kind of advice will be greater. So it's not that nobody's ever heard of being a trusted advisor before, but tomorrow it's a must-do.
Yeah, there was a guest I interviewed a few months ago on the show, a gentleman from Europe, Reggie Lemons, and a professor and owner of a consulting firm over in Europe, and he's written extensively about the future of sales, and he
even posits a future that sort of takes it one step further than you do, that the customers may actually get to the point where they pay you for this advice that you give them in advance of buying from you.
Yeah, I mean, I think one of the questions that companies need to address with their sales force, for example, is what value is the sales force providing in addition to the products they sell?
And the perception is not much in many cases.
No, I mean, they're out there selling the product. But I think as the future unfolds, Andy, the sales reps are going to have to provide value over and above the products they sell. That's being a true advisor.
Right.
For example, we've talked about consultative selling forever. But you look at the number of reps that are really providing solid advice above and beyond the products they sell, those are few in number.
Exactly. So I guess my question is for you is in that environment, and you probably may remember because I think we touched on it last time, is, I'm a big advocate that, I think this is absolutely a trend that's happening, and it really requires almost nothing less than really rethinking who gets hired into these positions, because it seems like it's a really big gap to span to say, look, we're going to keep hiring sort of the generalists, the people with general knowledge that we have now, and expect that we as organizations can train them to have the insights and the expertise and the acumen to become these advisors to the customers, as opposed to getting people with more formal training in some of the fields that our customers are in.
Well, I think that's right, Andy. I mean, I think if you really want to make this transition in a substantive way versus just kind of talking about it and doing it at the margin, then I think you have to look at it very holistically. You have to look at all the pieces of the puzzle that would affect that. Certainly selection. Are you going to select the same kind of people? I don't think so. Are you going to design your territories the same way? No, I don't think so. What about the compensation system? Is that going to be the same? I don't think so. So I think there'll be a much more holistic and integrative look at how you achieve this trusted advisor role. Training is one piece of it, but it's only one piece. But it is going to happen because the customers will demand it.
Yeah, and I think that if you harken back to Rackham's book on rethinking the modern sales force,
yes,
he's very clear in there that if the channel can no longer add value to the buyer during the purchase process, then the channel's going to go away.
Right.
So, we have these studies going on that, Forrester or somebody released about, 20% of the business-to-business salespeople employed today are going to lose their jobs by the year 2020 because, that job's just going to go away. Not that they're, anything wrong with them, but the job's just going to go away. But the thought behind that is that, hey, is the way you maintain your job is you keep educating yourself and learning to be able to deliver something of value to your prospects and your buyers.
Yes, and I think the other factor, in addition to the sort of business environment, trusted advisor factor, is I think the target population for the training is going to change. I mean, right now, millennials are about 1/3 of the workforce in the United States. In 2020, they'll be half. Well, I mean, one must be cautious about making these broad brush assessments of entire age cohorts. However, the millennial generation is a little bit different. I mean, they were brought up, with an iPhone in their hand versus a teddy bear. So they're going to demand a different kind of training. They want information, anytime, any place. They want it in microbytes. They expect it to be available on their telephone. That will mean that those of us who are concerned about training are going to have to think of different ways of delivering training rather than just in the classroom. Because the target population for the training will demand it. Just like companies will demand a more sophisticated seller than simply one who can come in and talk about the product.
Okay. Well, hold that thought because we're going to come back and address that topic about what that future sales training looks like. And I want to get into a conversation about a topic that's important to me. It's distinguishing between sales education versus sales training and the relative importance of one versus the other. So I'll be back with my guest, Richard Ruff, right after the break.
Hi, this is Andy. Connect and Sell is used by sales reps at nearly 1,000 companies, including hundreds of technology startups and several Fortune 500 companies, to overcome the challenges of getting prospects on the phone. Companies using Connect and Sell grow their revenues faster by enabling their sales reps to have more sales conversations in 90 minutes than they could otherwise achieve in an entire week. Connect and Sell can be deployed directly to your sales reps, or you can take advantage of their outbound on-demand service, which delivers qualified prospect meetings scheduled directly on your sales reps' calendars. Visit connectandsell.com to learn more about how Connect and Sell can start filling your pipeline today.
Okay, we're back. We're talking about, with my guest today, Richard Ruff, we're talking about the future of sales training. We sort of stepped off the deep end a little bit with the future of sales and then how that relates to sales education or sales training, excuse me. So you're talking about, right before the break, sales training, obviously classroom training. It's funny how people still insist on that. I talk to clients about doing it and I say, okay, what are we going to do afterwards in terms of how we reinforce what they learned in the classroom? Still seems to be a concept that's kind of foreign to a lot of people.
Well, yeah, and again, that's talked about now, but tomorrow you're going to have to do that. If you're in the sales training business, you're going to have a way of making that happen. And if you're a training director inside a company, that's not a nice to do. I mean, I think there are going to be several principles that will impact how training is delivered. I think. In the classroom, Andy, I think the only thing that's going to go on in the classroom is that which uniquely can occur in a classroom. And that's stuff that's pure skill development. It's practice and feedback stuff. But knowledge transfer.
Well, but even that we're seeing now is your role plays are being done virtually as well. I've seen tools.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And that technology, you'll be able to do certainly beginning exercises virtually. So the amount of training that will have to be delivered in the classroom will be significantly diminished in the future. Will there be some? Of course. Very high level kinds of experiences can be delivered in the classroom. But will there be less of it than today? You bet. I think you're going to have ways of delivering it online. There'll be custom apps where a rep can get that piece of information they need right before they go on the sales call.
So you think this contextual training, if you will, or contextual reinforcement is one of the trends that is going to take hold here?
Oh, I don't think there's any question about that, Andy. I mean, I think whatever you do in the training, the training, it will have to be viewed as an ongoing sort of thing, whereas today it's sort of an event. We think in terms of programs. We speak in terms of 1 and 2 day, events. In the future, I think it'll be much more of a continuous thing. Yes, there might be some programs done, but there'll also be online applications that you can go to reinforce that training, and that the coaches can use as resources for their reps to use. I think there'll be much more peer-to-peer kind of learning occurring. One of the things about the millennial generation is they're much more collaborative than previous generations. So there's going to be the opportunity to have one set of new hires help the next set of new hires because the technology will be there to easily drive that kind of learning.
Oh yeah, and you see some of that already today.
No question. And you take something that maybe is a little further out, but think about what's going to happen with virtual technology, with virtual reality. There's a technology that's being worked on today, granted in a very nascent way, but you take somebody like a Microsoft with their HoloLens technology. I don't think it's out of the question, Andy, that you could envision 6 or 7 years from now that a medical company could train their cardiac reps by having them actually walk through a heart in a virtual reality environment. So you could actually see, okay, what's the effect of implanting a stent so that the reps could actually walk through a human heart. Now, that's a little different.
I like that.
And I think that technology in its beginning states are already there. And I think the explosion with that will be dramatic. There was a recent article in Wired magazine that did say that virtual reality is the next smartphone.
Right. Yeah, I saw that article. Yeah.
Yeah. And to me, that's going to be exciting. But that takes people with vision to change the way they're delivering training.
Yeah, I mean that's right. What we're going to see is a lot of crap up front with it until people really understand how to use it.
Yeah, no question. It'll be more costly. The actual equipment that used to make it happen today is still pretty clumsy. But think about 10 years, it'll be a whole different world. That technology will absolutely grow exponentially.
Right. So what you envisioning, and I think that's certainly a lot of validity into, is that less of sort of overall classroom training, and we're already seeing this trend toward apps, what I call contextual apps, that, hey, you're getting ready to go into a sales call, you can dial up a short video, reminder video, or an audio lesson, something to sort of, you can spend a few minutes with to walk you through sort of the challenges you might be having, perhaps even call up one of your old calls that you made on this customer, because more and more companies are getting into recording both their telephone calls as well as their in-person calls with reps, and maybe go over the last call you had with them, and retrieve the coaching notes that you got from your manager who listened to that call when you got back, all in preparation in your car, perhaps before you're going to see the client, or in a minute or two before you get on the phone with them.
I think that's right, Andy. I think that's exciting. I mean, just think about it. Would you rather be sitting in a classroom with some person standing in front of the room with 100 PowerPoint slides, or would you like training to be delivered in real time, no matter where you are, on your iPhone? Well, that's not much of a choice.
Yeah, I think it's going to be a combination of both. You see training sort of at two levels. One is, I think, the one right before you go on the call, like that's going to be, I call that's contextual. That's going to be reinforcement. You're hopefully in the minute or two before you go into a call, you're not learning something new, because you're not going to have time to integrate that into whatever you do. But even the more basic sales training that might have been classroom could certainly be done as self-paced. And we're seeing already applications come on the market like MindTickle and others that can integrate with this learning so that they can give a score, like, how ready are you as a new rep through your onboarding process to actually go out and interact with customers.
Right. And the other thing to me to always keep in mind is that even if you look at what the very best are doing today, I mean, they're doing some exciting stuff even today, but it's really isolated. The average company is not doing that. The average company is still doing pretty much what they've been doing for a long time.
Well, I think one of the things that's really the gap that's missing, and people listen to the show frequently probably rolling their eyes as I started to get into this topic, but to me, there's a real difference between sales education or sales learning, if you will, versus sales training.
Yes.
Right? I mean, sales training is very skills oriented, right? We sort of brute force application of tactics and other things. but beneath all that, there's this wisdom about how people make decisions, how you build relationships, how you build rapport that aren't necessarily hard skills or tactical skills. These are things that you need to have some perspective on. You need to, read broadly and deeply in some cases. And it seems like that is one issue that, we can have all the technological innovation we want, and we touch a certain level of the training. But the development of the whole person, the acumen and the expertise behind it, that seems like that's still lacking. I've got some test programs going with clients where, I've provided them a curriculum of books to read about sales and marketing and decision making and so on, and reading guides for the books. And what they do is actually allocate time during the business day, 15 minutes during the business day, for their salespeople to read, because if you leave it to them outside of work, they don't read. And suddenly their people now are getting exposed to all this different thought perspectives about selling, buying, and so on, that really reinforces the tactical training they get.
I think that's absolutely right. And I just had a meeting last week with a group of sales managers, and I was saying, to what degree do you recommend to your sales team that they ought to leverage all the smart stuff that's presently being available to a rep, again, just on their iPads. And they weren't doing it at all. They were not resourcing that kind of thing to their sales reps. I mean, you can go even today to just simple apps like Apple News or Flipboard, and the collection of articles that are there every day are really informative. I mean, sales managers need to be doing that. They need to be resourcing that to their sales reps. If you just read Apple News and Flipboard stuff on sales and sales training every day, you'd be a lot smarter.
Yeah, well, and that's what we're doing with this program with the books. And you can ask, and I've done this, and I know other thought leaders do as well, as in sales leaders, when you are interviewing somebody for a sales position and you ask them, okay, well, which sales book have you read in the last 30 days? The answer is, pretty much always never, none, right?
Right.
So what's really important, I think, is this issue of commitment to continuous learning, which really focuses on providing the why behind the how. Right now, we just teach people how, and we don't teach them why.
Yeah, and the thing is that stuff is available even today, and so the trick will be to expose a wider group of people to what is available and what will become available, because it'll be more and more accessible. It'll be easier to tap into. So we who are on the side of sales training need to help clients do that. The other thing, in that general area that I think is kind of interesting, and there's a little bit of debate about this, but I think universities may play a different role in the future. Right now, if you look at universities that are provided massive online training, there's some major players. I mean, the MITs and the Harvards are in that business. A lot of the stuff now is free, but some of it is now being done for pay. So institutions like Georgia Tech, for example, they offer a master's degree in computer science online. Well, I don't think it's out of the question that in 5 or 6 years, major universities will be offering degrees in selling online.
Well, yeah, there's, I think, about 45, that offer bachelor degrees of some sort in sales today, and conventional classroom. But yeah, it stands to reason that you would see some of that migrate to online for sure.
No question, because it's, again, the technology will make it easier to use. It'll make it more exciting. Some of the online stuff now is, still, a little bit on the tedious side, but that won't be true in the future. The technology is growing again exponentially, so it'll be really exciting stuff to go through versus just sitting watching PowerPoints online. I mean, there'll be better stuff than that.
Well, so is one of the trends you think that the undergraduate degree programs in sales management will become more important, actually have more perceived value? I mean, it's one of the things that's sort of interesting. They're really flying under the radar now, other than maybe Kansas State and a couple other programs. Those of us who are deeply involved in the sales business, we sort of know about it a little bit, but we don't know that much about it. And in terms of, hearing about them, seeing innovation coming out of that, seeing the professors that run those programs, writing innovative books or new tomes about, future of sales and so on. So it seems like that has to change, right?
No question. And I think they won't be under the radar anymore. I mean, and partly just by sheer economics. Think of the number of undergraduates that graduate from our universities each year that go into sales. Well, it's astronomical. So why not provide courses where you can get an undergraduate degree, particularly if you could do it online? And the other advantage of that for sales and for sales training, once the universities get involved, the credibility goes up, because universities still hold credibility. And historically, if you go back, say, 10 years again, I mean, nobody talked about sales in universities at all. I mean, it was one chapter in a marketing book.
Yeah, pretty much, right.
And so tomorrow, I think universities will buy into it, if for no other reason than pure economics. The market will be there for students who want to become credentialed in sales. And if you can do it online, that means it'll be affordable and accessible to a wider population. So I think you'll see a much more acceptable and a much more pervasive engagement of universities in sales education.
All right. Well, you said something that triggered a thought, so I'll make this the last question of the session here. Is you talked about credentials. So what do you see and what do you forecast in terms of the importance not of only of a university credential, but certifications for sales reps? We see a little bit of it now, but what do you see as becoming something that could take hold? Lots of other professions have certifications, obviously. Professional services that we work with, CPAs, lawyers, doctors, and so on. Is there something in the future like that you see for sales?
Yes, and I think the critical player is universities. I don't think you'll see that unless the universities become players.
But I was talking about professional certification beyond the degrees, though. I mean, do you see much like there's American Medical Association, hey, an American Sales Association, and you've got your college degree in sales, and if you want to, work in certain industries, you got to pass this exam.
I'm not sure about that one. I think you might see that in some specific specialties in sales, but I'm not sure about the pervasiveness of that. Again, unless universities, that has to come first. There has to be.
I agree. Yep.
There has to be a credibility of getting degrees from universities before I think you would have the licensing occur.
All right. Very interesting. Well, Dick, it was great to talk to you again as usual. I'm going to spare you my standard questions I asked you last time that I always torture my guests with at the end of the show. But any final thoughts or comments about sales training before we sign off?
Well, I think only that I think the next 10 years for those of us who are engaged in the sales training industry, either as consultants or as inside training directors, it's going to be an enormous number of opportunities to do innovative work. And you're only delimited by your own imagination, because I think the technology will be there. I think that the demand will be there. So it's an exciting time, I believe, to be in the field of sales training.
Yeah, and I would concur. And I would say that research is known for a long time that the way people most effectively consume new information or acquire new knowledge is in smaller bites, and that's reinforced frequently. And heretofore, the technology hasn't really existed in an integrated fashion to be able to make that a reality. Now it is. And as you said, if we get innovative people taking the lead on it, we're going to see a lot of transformations. And hopefully for most people in the sales profession, a lot fewer classroom training sessions than they have to, with PowerPoint slides, than they have to be submitted to now.
Well, yeah, again, I mean, I think if it'll be a challenging time, I think there'll be some winners and losers. No question, as there are always when you have challenging times. But the opportunity will be there if you take the risks, if you make the investment. I think you have the potential to actually make a contribution.
Great. So, Dick, tell people how they can find out more about you and Sales Momentum.
Well, you could do a couple things. You could take a peek at our website, salesmomentum.com, and the second area, we write a blog every week on salestrainingconnection.com. So that's another place to go, and on there you can download free some of the ebooks we've written as additional background on some of the research that we've done in best practices. So those would be the two best ways: salesmomentum.com, and for the blogs, salestrainingconnection.com.
Great. Well, great. Well, thank you again for being on the show. And friends, remember, make it a part of your day, every day, to deliberately learn something new to help you accelerate your success.
And an easy way to do that is to make this podcast, Accelerate, a part of your daily routine, whether on your morning commute, in the gym, or perhaps you make it part of your morning sales meeting. Then you'll make sure you don't miss any of my conversations with top business experts like my guest today, Dick Ruff, who shared his expertise about how to accelerate the growth of your business. So thanks for joining me, and until next time, this is Andy Paul. Good selling, everyone. Thanks for listening to the show. If you like what you heard and want to make sure you don't miss any upcoming episodes, please subscribe to this podcast on iTunes or Stitcher.com. For more information about today's guest, visit my website at andypaul.com.